Oh, they will hear us.
Yeah, they heard all of that, but it's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, all right. You can fade us in, Tony.
I'm glad you didn't say alcohol. I was going to be like, Tony, are you drinking during the day right now?
Guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of House Rules Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Getlin.
I'm your other host, Rachel LaForce.
And with us today, I'm so excited. We have our first guest ever. Emily Browning. What's up, girl? How are you?
It feels so good to be here. I'm tripping out. Yeah. Like I said, I'm used to watching the show either on my computer or on my phone. So to be here is a dream of COVID.
A COVID dream.
It's a COVID dream.
It's like a fever dream, but more ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So, guys, by the way, Emily's a incredibly funny comedian. I'm not just saying that. I'd say of all the people that we're like mutually friends with, maybe our favorite. You might be tied with Willie Simon because he's really funny too.
Oh,
but
he's
like
fun.
One of our favorite people. Do you still do your podcast, or that's on hiatus?
It's on hiatus, but we used to, and it was hot. It was a fun time.
Do you want to plug it? Is it still up? Can people download it?
They can still download it. It's called Making Love and Growing Up, found on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcasts are available. And yeah, maybe you might need some hot tips and tricks with your relationship right now during COVID.
Can people DM you for advice?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And I'm accepting donations. My Venmo, I'll tell you, just DM me. It's like fine. I'll also do like a tarot reading if you want. I was doing that at the beginning of COVID.
I saw you did do that.
Yeah, that was so long ago.
Wait, I've got to say, I love so much about living in Los Angeles that the amount of my friends that now is like a secondary form of income, they're like now offering like card readings.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to, I'm not here to like shit on anyone's hustle. It's more just hilarious to me of like that suddenly everyone's like, yeah, because of course, like the people that would be wanting to buy that from you probably already have their own set of tarot cards.
I kind of feel, is it tarot, not tarot?
I mean, it's a little bougie to say tarot, but
is being a tarot reader like the new being a DJ?
Oh my God.
Ooh,
so
kind
funny.
of.
Maybe, yeah, because like
but I
everyone does it,
would,
but no one's really good at it.
I would Venmo you $5 for.
Yeah, anybody can do it. Nobody's really that good at it.
I know, but everybody offers it.
Right.
Everybody's like dabbled.
Yeah, dude, totally.
You'd offer me $5 though, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, you want to take that?
And here's
Wait,
the thing.
Can you do a couples reading for us?
Yeah, I can. You're doing great.
Wait, dude, I have so many questions. Okay. We were chatting it up before. All right. So you've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
We were in Atlanta. We escaped. And then we came back to a full shutdown. So what good that did.
No, we came back. I worked 3 shifts.
Yeah.
And then they were like, JK, we're going to close things. And then today they were like, oh, no, legit, like everything's closed again.
Yeah.
So on that note of your awesome Making Love and Growing Up podcast, everybody go check it out on iTunes and Spotify. Dating in COVID, what's it like, dude?
Well, I'm on my second relationship during COVID.
Wait, you had a full-blown relationship?
I'm in a full-blown relationship.
You're in one.
I met him at a protest.
Oh my God.
This is
The
real.
most LA thing.
Oh my God.
Rachel almost spit her water everywhere.
And that was Red Bull, and that's not cheap.
Fill me in. Okay.
Oh my God. Wait, the first guy was the Photoshop guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
Can you give us
Like he photoshopped himself or what?
Okay, so can you give us a quick, do you feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, he's not going to listen.
Okay. Quick beginning, middle, and end of that relationship. Now tell us about protest.
Yeah, okay. Well, like 2 weeks into COVID, I was so alone. I was watching my roommate fall in love. They were already, and it was great. I was just third wheeling it so hard. And everybody else seemed like they had like outside friends or whatever. And I was like, wait, COVID doesn't know, this disease doesn't know if they were my boyfriend before or after the pandemic. So I need to get like a guy. Like now, you know?
Yeah.
And so I hinged like every day, all day for like couple days, found a guy. He's super cool, worked in music, Jewish, great. Okay. And like,
Oh, you like Jewish guys?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay.
Wait, what?
It's a lot of work. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. All right. But you're not Jewish.
I'm only like 20% Jewish. Like, because my grandmother on my father's side is Hungarian Jew. Like,
nice.
I grew up eating lox and bagels.
But you're down,
like,
you want to get back into like your Jewish roots.
Yeah, well, like I'm down. Yeah, I like it. Like I'm down to try. Why not? I like people.
Why not?
What if I was like, I'll date anyone except the Jews? Except,
well,
I mean, it's been a good time.
It's been said before. You like dating me. I'm the first Jewish boyfriend. I'm now your fiance.
Yeah, I was like, well, I think we're still getting married. So
I've just been referring to you as my wife. It's too annoying to say.
I know,
fiance.
but that's also
That's so
like
cute.
it's. I don't know why it's like we're gonna come back to you, but
Yeah.
why it's like bothered me because a lot often you've been like like you've referenced us being married or like being my husband, and I'm like, dog, that's not happened yet.
I'll tell you why.
We've spent
No.
so much money to not have that title yet. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know, but I'm going to tell you why. Because so much when I say fiance now, everyone's like, "Oh, what are you guys going to do? Do you have a wedding plan? Does it cancel? What are you?" I was like, "I don't stop. Enough. I already went through all that." So I just say wife and be like, "Okay."
Oh,
Like-
so
like,
you really just say because it causes you more anxiety to say fiance.
well, and it's not anxiety. It's just like I don't feel like having those. Like it's just annoying to. It's like I won't tell like a random Uber driver that I'm a comedian because they're like, "Oh, really? What's you get it? Yeah."
Totally. I'll make up jobs. And
Yeah.
the next thing you know, I'm lying. I'm like, yeah, interior design is really hard
You
right
just
now.
started double life. Yeah.
Well, and then it becomes more emotional labor, right? Because now you're making up a whole saga for somebody else.
Right.
100%.
I know.
And yeah. And they start talking to me about like how they want to redesign the kitchen. And now I'm like giving them advice on that.
They
and I'm
offer
like,
you a job
yeah,
and you take it.
absolutely. I'm like,
So you-
graphite is a better option. Thank you.
So now you should just start telling them that you read tarot cards.
Yeah, Tarot, which reminds me of like Thoreau. I feel like
Yeah, I
we're
was-
talking about English literature.
They're
yeah,
not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, sorry. You keep going.
Oh, well, I
So
was just
dating.
gonna. Yeah, oh, the dating.
We're back to
okay,
you.
We're back to that.
Are we on
okay.
Photoshop guy or protest guy?
Oh gosh,
Photoshop.
Photoshop. Well, I mean, if he's out there and listening, just know I really enjoyed you. It's just a shame you didn't like to commit to me. But that's besides the point.
His loss.
He didn't like sleepovers. He didn't like coffee. I'm like, I picked the wrong guy.
Ugh.
You know
Sure.
what I'm saying?
Music, check. Jewish, check. The other things,
Yeah.
no thanks.
If you're gonna be my COVID boyfriend, sleepovers have to be a must. I'm trying to get out of my place. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I can't handle.
Wait, are you looking for a roommate?
What? No. I just needed another place to be
Oh.
besides my like 5x5 bedroom.
I understand.
It is bigger than that, But yeah, so
Humble brag.
yeah. But it was okay. Yeah, he did Photoshop his picture to make him look a lot different.
But that was the last time that Emily and I caught up. I'm in Atlanta and I'm crawling out of my skin because the only person that I get to hang out with is Sir Alex Getland, which
Which is a good choice.
great choice, but also hanging out. It doesn't matter. Tell me your favorite food. Eventually, you're gonna get sick. Pepperoni
Yeah.
pizza.
That's fair.
Yeah.
To
You know
be
what I mean?
honest, even I don't like hanging out with me half the time.
No. Oh my
well,
god.
no, I'm not saying that. You're a good hang, but I'm saying that it's like.
So. No, I'm loud and I get excited over silly things.
But
and,
it's also just like I grew up an only child. I thrive on being alone. I get so much anxiety, especially right now. Like today, I had the whole morning to myself. I feel like I'm in a much better place because I simply had quiet. But I also know that same like I definitely sympathize if people don't have like a significant other right now because I think in
Yeah,
some ways
100%.
I always hate this. I'm like I don't want to be the girl that's like getting married. That's like no, really, girl. Like being single is like so underrated. Like enjoy it. Like nobody fucking likes that person. Okay, so I don't want to be her. But also at the same time is like I feel like people are putting so much pressure. I just have other women in my life right now that are like I have to get married. I have to, and I'm like you
Well,
don't.
if it's the right person, you shouldn't.
Yeah, for sure. And everybody like wants to find like good connection. I just feel like when we're like rushing towards this thing, I'm also like, yeah, but then the person's like just going to be the person you're with all the time. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Well,
Is that the point of getting? Oh no, have I ruined?
No. I feel like relationships are like buying a dog. Like literally, hanging out with a guy all day feels like you own a dog. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Like you take him on walks and you feed him,
pet
and
him.
you rub his belly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so somebody pointed out something.
You're
They
not.
said
You're not wrong. I can't tell if you're doing a bit or being
I'm
serious.
not.
But I'm supporting this by saying that's very, very
you
accurate.
do look. I will say you do look kind of tan. Have you been outside a lot?
Your
So
skin is
much.
glowing.
Yeah.
I
So
have.
much.
You look great.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you so much. Well, I've been like biking for the first time.
Love
Like
it.
I've actually like
you know what we did
exercising.
yesterday?
You went on a bike ride. I've heard you bike. You said that you bike.
I'm an avid biker.
Yeah.
You should come with us.
That would be so fun.
Does-
We'll be far apart.
Does Protest Peter also? I just made it that name for him.
Protest Peter.
Does he also bike?
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's all about the bike. Like the first guy I dated owned a Bianchi. Then I ended things with
What
him.
is that?
It's an Italian.
They're super fancy. Yeah.
Is it Bianchi? I think
I
it's
don't know.
Bianchi. I'm not.
I'm
I
not.
could be wrong.
I don't know a
I think
ton
it's
about
Beyonce.
the
Yeah.
But
So anyway, so I'm at the protest, and so the next day, and then we started protesting. Protesting really just like added a lot of drama to our relationship because
God, so hot.
Yeah, right. And we were always like mismatching. Like I'm in downtown. Like, oh, I went to the one this morning. I'm tired. Oh, I'm around 1,000 people. Like, what does this mean for our relationship now? Like, protesting made COVID so weird.
Sure, I can only imagine.
Wait, can you speak more to that? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
because I mean, I was taking it so seriously. I was hanging around maybe 2 people, and I would only sleep in the
COVID, not protesting.
Oh no. But then when I decided to finally go to protests, that's when COVID. I kind of had to make a decision of like,
Sure.
I'm gonna get it, or
Right.
like, and I did the
Were
best.
most people masked up at the protests?
All of them.
Yeah.
I have scars
Yeah.
on either side. It looks like I have vapor snake bites on either side of my mouth from from my skin reacting to the mask. But I felt safe. Sometimes we were all spread out and like, but I just kind of made a decision after that. And I'd still sanitize and all that. It was just kind of like, this is the time and this is what I'm going to do. And it kind of felt like you were on the front lines. And I wouldn't hang out with old people or my mom or
totally.
anything like after.
Wait, walk me through like you're
I
at.
don't know why. I just imagined a group of old people. You called and you're like, sorry, went to protest today. It's not going to happen.
Is
I let
it?
them know.
I'm just imagining like you're marching, right? And
Yeah.
you shout no justice, and then he shouts no peace, and you lock eyes, and it's
Yeah,
like,
how did it happen?
So I remember his bike while we were protesting because it's the same bike as the guy that I actually haven't told him it's the same bike, and they have the same name. It's so funny. And
so he's like
Maybe he
Peter
just-
2.0.
maybe
Yeah.
he photoshopped himself into this new guy.
That's so funny. Sorry, I really can't let the Photoshop thing go. I'm like embarrassed for if you Photoshop your body, you should really give someone a heads up. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, why would anyone?
But that was my favorite thing that wasn't the deal breaker for you.
It
Because you
wasn't.
told me about that and said, well, I got to go. We're going on a hike. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so then what will be the deal breaker? So it was just that he didn't want to sleep over and didn't like coffee.
and he was a daddy. So by a daddy, I mean like
Wait,
he
what?
like what?
He was a daddy. What do you mean he was a daddy?
Like, well, I don't want to like alarm your viewers, but sometimes in the intimate arena, you get a title. So in the intimate arena, he was a daddy. And
Oh, he liked being called daddy.
yeah, and so much more.
Like
so much more.
So that's where you were just like, I'm done because like your
It was
sexual
hard.
taste.
Well, what happened
didn't
was,
align?
yeah,
he was,
so
he's
our-
a creepy.
No, it wasn't creepy. I'm a very curious person, so I was like, I'm gonna try to dive into this role. But the thing is like, if you're going to like slap me, you also need to let me sleep over and tell me I'm pretty. You know what I'm saying? But if you're
that. Next time you're on an app, please make that your bio. Be like, if you're gonna slap me, you have to let me sleep over and tell me that I'm pretty. Like that's
100%.
your thing, right? Exactly.
That is
Yeah.
so funny because I've talked about that with Alex when we've talked about like not even with us, obviously comics, you talk about this stuff all the time, right? And so I was saying that and he was like, well, I always think it's weird like when people carry over like all this, like role playing or like names or titles or whatever. And I'm like, to me, it makes so much more sense to like play with someone you're actually like committed to. And like the next day will be like, I will honor you and like you're tired. So like I will take out the trash.
Well,
today.
I
Like,
do
to
that
me,
part.
I know, but then I'm like, sure, then call me whatever you want. But I'm like, if I don't know you,
I
bro,
know.
and like you got 4 roommates and you're trying to like not, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
no thanks.
yeah.
You know?
100%.
Like these are things you need to
just-
like earn.
Exactly.
That's how I feel.
Earning is, or like you need to at least like then I just feel like I'm getting beat up. Like now I'm just
100%.
like, do you want to come over? Do I feel like coming over and crying? Is that what like and like and just so it was just got eventually. And I would talk to my friends about it, and they'd be like, "Are you okay?"
So he photoshopped himself and also had very questionable sexual boundaries.
Yes.
And you were like, okay, later.
Yeah.
Okay, so
well,
now-
and like he didn't want a future, and like I was looking for a future. I
Sure.
can't because it was at the end of the day I was like I can't do this casually like this,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
looking. You're not a good COVID partner.
Okay.
Hanging out, and he liked to plan things 2 days in advance.
Weird.
So hangouts. Imagine if Rachel. Imagine if you wanted to hang out with your fiance, and he's like, I'm really busy. Can you please let me know plans 2 to 3 days in advance?
Yeah, that even for us, that would be like,
Especially
no.
during COVID, I'd be like, okay, well, for 2 days, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, what?
I might-
What plans? What plans?
Hey, Tony, can you turn my headphones down just a smidge?
Yeah,
Sorry,
they're-
thanks.
it's
We're
the,
peaking for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Feels good to peak, though.
Yeah.
You know what
you're
I mean?
right.
Well, okay, so now this new guy. Now, how did you meet him in the protest?
So I finally, my friends were like, Emily, you know what? You need to get out there. You just settled for this guy. You need to get out there. You know, it's a great place to meet a guy at a protest. So like, Emily, I dare you, okay, to get a guy's Instagram handle tomorrow. And I was like,
not a very big dare.
Yeah,
but I like your friends.
I triple dog dare you.
Yeah.
Instagram? Can you get a number? Just an Instagram hand?
Yeah.
Give me your home address.
Yeah. Emily, you got to get 3 addresses tomorrow. So I kind of was like jokingly on the prowl I was protesting downtown from like 8 a.m. to 2. And by the end of the day, I was super tired. So I was sitting on the grass in front of City Hall. And I remember this Bianchi bike that was next to me throughout the protest. Did my mic go out?
Yeah, I had him.
No, we had to turn
nice.
it down. We were peaking.
It was
Okay, got it.
hurting.
Okay. So
You're good.
Thank you, Tony.
yeah, thank you. And so and then I see the bike on the grass, and he's like a good 6 feet away from me, laying down on his side, you know.
Responsible.
And I just go, hey, what size bike is that? Is that a 54? And he told me later on he knew nothing about the bike. He was like, yeah. I think it's it's like a 54 yeah, for sure. And so we start chatting it up. And then eventually, and I was like, oh, he's British. That's cool, you know? Like
He's British?
He's British, yeah.
Why did you wait this long in the conversation to say that? You literally could have been like, he had a bike. I met him at a protest because he has values and he's British. Yeah. And I would have been like, you should leave now.
Yeah,
Go find him.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And so
Are you guys going to get married before us?
he would love that, I think.
Well, we actually have a second venue booked that we can sublease.
Yeah, can we transfer it to you?
Oh my God.
We actually, it's not till April of next year.
Yeah.
So you've got time to fall deeper
perfect.
in love.
I'll talk to him.
You like this guy?
I do. I've never actually done this. I've never were like in love, and like I've never really done this before.
Wait, are you being serious?
You feel like you're in love?
You said I love you.
Yeah.
I wish I had a soundboard I could hit like a button that says like
yeah. Like a week and a half into our basically our first date was 48 hours long. Like it just did not end.
Yeah.
And I was like, when do dates end? I don't know.
But here's the thing to consider, right? You're in love in this crazy time.
Yeah.
Until you go back to if it ever resumes at this point.
Yeah.
But like I feel like until you're back in like a regular life routine, it's hard to totally know.
Super hard to gauge for sure. He has met like one of my friends, and it was like outside far apart. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And also my friend life is dead because comedy were my friends, and now I'm like, oh my God, who
You're
are my
welcome to
friends?
come and hang out with me every day. I have no friends. I have felt so alone.
It's so hard because all of my friends. I tried to explain this to him. I'm like, all of my friends were, I get off work, I'm going to go to the Comedy Store or like Lyric or like just like a different venue. And I know that 5 of my friends will be there.
Right.
These aren't friends,
Totally.
though, that I'm hitting up before. A lot of my friendships, it's safe relationships. You don't have to tell people you love them. You get to show up and then like, it's very...
Yeah, people who don't do stand-up don't totally get it. Like, it's hard. I've explained it, and they kind of understand, but it doesn't really compute because it's such a unique experience.
Oh, yeah. No, it's very, very unique. And so now I'm just in this state of like, oh, my God, I have to reach out to my friends and tell them I miss them and be like, we should probably hang out in a parking lot soon or something. Like, instead of...
You're back in high school.
Exactly.
Let's go drink in a parking lot.
You want to hang out in front of Ralph's?
Yeah.
Like, that sounds really fun.
Wait, I have to ask. You brought a clipboard. What? Did you bring notes to read?
Oh my gosh.
Wait, we're just going to roll past her and this guy being in love now?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Finish the love thing.
Well, first of all, I'll just say this. The clipboard is literally just notes I took of listening to your podcast in case I wanted to ask you guys some questions.
Wait, can we do that? What's on there? I'm so excited.
I mean, I'm just curious, like, what was your favorite part of League of Their Own? Like, things like that.
Okay. You really listen. So you're aware recently was the first time I'd seen it like in completion.
Right.
Like I knew like parts of it, everything. I think my favorite part, I don't know. I will say this, I said this before, is watching it, I really was like, yeah, man, being a woman in the 40s sucked. Like, and
Right.
I know it's still things today, there's problems, right? But like really like, especially like now everybody's trying to be so, hopefully, like most people are trying to be aware of like, hey, what are things that like we shouldn't do anymore and like how to progress. And then watching it and I was like there was the scene where like he flat out tells this woman, well, you're ugly, so you can't play sports. And it's like, she's playing baseball. What? Why does that matter? And
But it's the first time that sport was televised, so it makes sense, right? It's the same thing with like politicians.
I'm just imagining. There's so few scenarios I can think of where somebody would say to me, well, you're too ugly, so you can't do a thing that's completely unrelated to the job that you're supposed to be doing.
Well, welcome to being a woman.
That's 100%. Because being a woman, not only do you have to be sophisticated, smart, witty, smiley, good at cooking, fashionable, you also need to be slender and not eat.
right.
But also work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know plenty of dudes who don't like slender women.
And it's not dudes. We're just talking about like mainstream
societal
everything. Yeah, of like
expectations,
being
yeah.
successful in like whatever you want to. Like if you want to be a spokesperson or the head of something or the face of something.
Yeah.
Like, these are qualities.
I won't challenge you on that.
Yeah.
Wait, what else is on there?
Okay, let's see. Am I the 30th episode?
I
Yeah,
think you
this is-
are.
yeah,
Oh my
Yeah.
god! I mean, like what an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
on
we
this
made it 30
celebratory-
episodes.
Congrats, guys!
Thanks.
That's really crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I couldn't think of a better person to bring on our 30th
That's
30th
true.
episode.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I feel like every time I reach out to you, I can still never tell if it's a bit. I'm like, dude, we should hang out. You're like, oh my god, yeah, I would like love that. I'm like, yeah, you know, we're friends. Like, you can call me whenever you
We
want.
don't need like a podcast. To
Yeah.
hang
Because
out.
I always feel
Oh my
like
God.
in my head, like the story I create is I'm like, oh my God, Emily's like so funny and cool and like so much younger than me. So she's like going out and like drinking and hanging out with like all of these like cool, like young comedy people, you know, because like to me, if someone's like, do you want to stay out till 4? I'd be like, are we like hunting something? No. You know? Like I'm like, no.
human flesh.
But that's
actually.
Yeah.
but I think that's
Ah,
more of
just
being. You all right?
Yeah, I'm
I
good.
think that's more of being single.
Well, but I think it's that. It's also age. I don't drink anymore. Like
Yeah.
my, you know,
But you'll be up till 4 watching television on our couch. So
yeah, because I ate like, you know, a quarter of a weed brownie and I'm like just trying to ride that out.
That's still popping, man. That's a popping time.
Weed brownies?
Yeah.
A friend of mine brought some to my house that her and her friend made because she was like, I feel like you really need to chill out. And I was like, what? I'm fine. Everything's fine. She's like, yeah, you should probably just relax. And so I'm such a lightweight. And so I just eat like a little quarter and it's been great.
Yeah, we can definitely still hang out. Also,
Oh, okay,
I
good.
discovered a lake. Like, it's only an hour and 10 minutes from here.
where is it?
It's Silverwood, and there's like a beach. It's actually like my
Okay.
boyfriend and I's like place. We like discovered it together, even though it's like a very public location.
No, but it's
Do you guys
But it's
camp?
We went to Lake Paris recently together.
What's that?
That's like
That's in
out
Pa- in-
in the Goonies.
in Paris, California.
Yeah. And no, he did not take me to Paris. That's so stupid. You know when you say things and you're like, I think I'm doing the comedy thing. You're like, I'm doing the comedy thing. You're like, this
Honestly,
isn't a joke.
no,
It's a
just-
stupid.
I can't tell the difference. I was
It's like
more
comedy
stuck
in the 50s or something.
I was more stuck on the fact that you called them the Goonies when I think you meant boonies.
I know.
I was way out in the Goonies.
I know what you meant.
I was more stuck on that. I'm like, do I say? I'll let it go.
Oh, you know what's funny is like, even if you didn't correct me, I'd be like, no, it's the Goonies.
That's so
I
funny.
think you're
I
mistaken.
think you're pretty sure people say
Well, so
Goonies.
Alex and I really want to go camping, and everything is like, unless we want to go to Joshua Tree and just like fry, there's
We should
nothing.
just go to Silverwood. It's like literally looks
Yeah.
like a beach, and it's a beautiful lake. It's such a fun drive out.
Dude,
It's-
let's do it.
Yeah.
Everything else is closed. All
Yeah.
these campsites I've been trying to find, they're all either totally booked up or shut down.
Yeah,
So
oh,
it's-
and these ones have been open. So, I mean, obviously, we went. Things might change as of recent because of LA
well,
shut things down again, but
I think it'll certainly inspire more people to go camping. But
Yeah.
some of this stuff, like we were biking yesterday, and you know, like Dockweiler Beach where you can have bonfires.
Yeah.
They took away all the fire pits, and it's like,
Alex was really upset
where
about this.
the F did they put 30 fire pits?
well, they're all.
Oh, they're just stacked up on the side.
like chairs after a church service.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what it looks like. It's like concrete circles, and they have them stacked, and it has even like
we were
fire.
so sad because we were like, oh, because we've, you know, not to brag, 2-year anniversary.
Ooh.
And, but, you know, we haven't had a lot to celebrate. It's like right now, I feel like anything is a reason to like try to do something fun, I guess,
Yeah.
or like different or out of your routine.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to find different fun things to do. And then he was like, well, what if we just come back here and like do a bonfire? I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so
Well,
wonderful,
it's just so-
romantic. And like, now we can't.
It's just so idiotic because like you can social distance and be outside. Why would you not? It doesn't make sense. Like you're just there. The things like we people need stuff to do to just have some sort of activity. Like, what do you expect? Now like I'm gonna get really angry and start.
You can
getting
just
over-
breathe and then continue.
I know. Anyway, you get it. I'm mostly frustrated that I just wish they never even tried to reopen, and we just took a knee.
I 100%. I was getting I had friends out of town kind of judging me from like I will admit it. I had drinks outside of bars. Like I went to bars that were open, and I did that thing.
That's like a brave thing to admit, or like a risque thing to say now.
Yep, I did it. And why? Because I went to 6 protests and didn't hear one person cough, and I got a little conspiracy weirdy, tooty shooty.
Oh, I'm still there.
And so it's kind of like. I kind of was like in a fuck it mentality, and also grieving what was going on in the nation, not even knowing if I trusted America anymore because I watched 2 documentaries. And
I know, we know everything.
You watch 13 and you're like, I don't trust anybody.
Yeah,
I don't trust any of you.
I know, but also if you've not watched that documentary, go onto Netflix and watch the 13th, and then watch
Listen, I'm with you. I mean, obviously, COVID is real. Obviously, it kills people, and obviously, it has serious health effects.
Yeah.
I'm still a bit skeptical that it's quite this like global destruction pandemic that we thought, simply because so many, like hundreds of thousands of people protested, and the numbers of like ICU beds, it's not as many as you would have expected. If I just, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, so many people were gathered together.
So many. 3,000, I think, in front of downtown LA. I was probably in the center of that. Hey,
I'm so
that was 6 weeks ago.
I still feel bad about saying, or not feel bad, but I feel conflicted about like when we were at home in Atlanta and like watching all of that, and you and a few of my other closer friends, and like watching their stories and all of that, and like I think it was just really difficult to sit with so much fire like in my belly about what was going on, and being so far away from it. And then also in another, I mean, Atlanta is a totally different landscape politically and like in every way, right?
Right.
And so being there and feeling so far away from it was like really.
I think you had FOMA.
Well, yeah, but it was also like, what's FOMA?
Fear of missing activism.
Oh, funny. How long have you been holding on to that?
I just thought of it.
Okay,
that's good.
But that's what it was, right?
But it was where I just like and sure, people are like, yeah, well, what are you gonna do? Just like arguing in the street and like yelling, like, oh, but also it's like sometimes it's as
amplifying voices.
Yeah, it's all, and I mean, and listen, you and I very much subscribe to that same idea, but for me, it was just like, it's also sometimes where just being out and being with people who see the world in the way that you do and are fighting for something better and wanting something better, and showing people, whether they choose to pay attention or see it that way or not, of like, there is a different way to do something, is to me like what life is about. It's like, it is this visceral thing of like, I don't know. So just for all of those reasons, like I was very, there was a part of me that was like grieving, I guess, of not being able to be there, because it just, what COVID has done for me on like a personal note has made, I feel very stifled, and I keep trying to remember like all of the ways in which, especially now of like digitally and even being able to do this, like there are so many ways to share and still mobilize and use and like kind of get that energy out, because that's what I think has been the biggest thing for me, is like just this feeling of like it just all feels like compacted. I don't know if that resonates at all, but
well, I'm curious, because I will say this, I was privileged that I was in a place where I got to go, because I'm not around my parents. I'm not around, anyone over the age of like even 45. So, and I have a very, very small circle. So I had that privilege, I would say, to be able to go out and like be around those people. But I'm just curious, what do you think are the reasons, like people who are experiencing FOMA, or like people at home, people listening who are like, I feel this guilt that I didn't go out. And it's like, how do they deal with that? You know what I'm saying? So what are some ways that like you think that you've dealt with FOMA?
I think it's very much influenced my work. So like I've sat a lot on wanting to share my like real thoughts and feelings, not like the comedic version of them. And I've been too scared, because I know a lot of close company that I keep and family do not agree with me. And so and it's also like, who am I? Like, there are people that are more educated than me on these subjects. I'm also like, my experience has been as a white woman. I have so many privileges. Like, who am I to speak or to say anything? And I think with all this happening is it's just like really like amplified for me of like, no, if you have any platform and are choosing to share something, if you're not saying what your truth is, then what is the point of saying anything at all? And that's even for people whose truths are different than mine. I mean, I prefer people who agree with me, but but it is to say of like, we're all here. And I feel like the way to learn is by sharing your point of view and what you feel is happening in the world. And so for me, I think, yeah, it's very much like changed. I mean, I think I've counted now like 42 followers in the past like 2 weeks from like
some of those
posting.
could be bots though.
Totally. I mean, and probably most of them are. There was like a while where like a bunch of old dudes were following me. I think just because they probably thought I was cute. And so I'm sure
Did they
now,
unfollow and you posted that we're engaged?
Oh, that's also probably true. But the point being that for whatever reason, whether it's like bots or otherwise, like I've seen a lot of people fall off, but also for me, it's been this kind of good feeling of like, hell yeah, then that means like you're actually saying something. Even if somebody's as simple as like, oh, I like her, but like this content isn't for me, so be it. Like the quickest way to find your people is by using your voice. And so I feel like that's been the biggest takeaway for me of like, all the time I sit at home and I talk about all these things and I keep Alex up late talking about all these things. He's like, cool, but like stop telling me, like start telling other people. So
well, hold on. I didn't say stop telling me.
No,
I love hearing it.
No,
it's just,
I know.
Like this is what it was. You had so much of this like, I got the world, I gotta change, right? And it's like, that's great. But I'm your fiance. Like I know this about you, and like I'm gonna think and act the same. Like you need to tell. I'm not the demo you're trying to reach. The demo is like people out there who want to be inspired or you want to give inspiration to. And the biggest thing I've seen is you're like, I love being funny. However, I'd rather, you don't want to be like the witty comic. It's like, oh, great jokes. You want people to like watch your comedy and be like, wow, like I understand like emotional intelligence more. Now I can like approach a relationship in a more healthy way, and that was funny information.
Yeah, and I think that it's a very long-winded answer. I don't think this is what you were prepared for. But the point being that I've struggled with this duality where I'm like, so I was raised by a therapist, my mom, and like all of my family is very academic and all these things. And I was always over here like comedy, loud, this and that. And I feel like all of these like layers that I've kind of started to take off, especially during COVID, which is like, who are you really? So if you can't get on stage, like, and you're not like a comic or you're not like this, or like, you're like clearly haven't won an Emmy yet, which I would still like one. But like all of these things that I thought I was going to have by now that I deserved because I had worked for them. So it's like, okay, so if those identifiers are not there, like who are you really and what do you really want to say? And I've been so scared to use that kind of like spiritual, educational, inspirational part of my brain because I'm like, but then people will tune out if I'm not funny. And that's what I was talking about before the podcast, that now I'm like, oh, my most authentic voice is where those two things meet. It's being able to talk about these things in a way that is digestible and presentable and also fueled by like fact and passion and history, but also in a way that's like, listen, we're not going to solve all the fucking problems today. So like take a break, but also choosing to not be a part of the conversation is choosing to be willfully ignorant. And that is the only point of view for me that I don't entertain. Because you are in a position, if you are in a position where you can go, well, it's just politics, turn it off, you are sitting on so much privilege that you're missing the point entirely.
Can you repeat that sentence?
I think I remember it. It's simply that if you are in a position to turn it off and say, I don't want to deal with politics, you are sitting on a position of privilege so massive that you are the problem. To me, that's how I feel. Of like,
I think you guys got even closer as friends.
Maybe
Emily could be your like student. You could like
my student.
I'm not even kidding. I was like literally about to be like, will you be my mentor? That's so funny. Was I giving off that energy?
I saw
of just like,
you had these.
No.
You had this look in your eyes when you. Well, it's so funny because I remember like, so quick plug, real quick. My other podcast, In the Herd. Now it's like a solo show where I just talk about the news and my opinions in the world. But I used to interview people. I might do some more later. So I had Emily on a while ago, and it was a wonderful interview. It's still up there if you want to find it.
Oh my God, he loved that so much.
it was fun.
It was
great, but I don't remember.
I was in the other room listening. That's how I know.
I don't remember if you said this on air or we were just chatting before, but you were like, I don't remember what the impetus was to like set this up, but you were like, Alex, I just want you to know, you are about to marry the coolest, the sexiest, the funniest. I mean, I know you know, but like I want to be her best friend. You know what I'm saying? You're just like talking, like it was almost like she was jealous that like I'm marrying you. And I was like,
I mean, I would have married you. I'm just saying.
You missed the boat.
You know,
you were like, "Here's my boyfriend.
Yeah.
I like relationships.
You know what, though?
I like comedians."
I will
didn't
say,
get it.
I'm not
next time.
I'm not encouraging this for like our situation, but Massachusetts did just legalize polyamorous civil unions. So
Really?
yeah.
and you
Look
know,
at
I will say this, that I feel like 3 is a number that never works because there's always an odd man out. But I will say this, that after like now really gearing up and realizing, like slowly realizing what marriage really means. And this is not any knock on you, right?
Yeah, right.
But the more that I'm like, hold on, people have just been doing this willfully for like years and years and years. Like the thought of just, and I don't know if it's old, like self-sabotaging, you know, like old Rachel drinking things that just now as we're getting closer, that idea of like cold feet where it's like, are you sure? Is this what you want to do? You know? And it, again, it's not about you. It could be anybody, but it's this idea of, Tony, are you married?
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
It'll be 2 years in September.
Okay. And
Congrats.
happily married.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. But did you guys ever like? Do you guys get sick of each other? Do you have any
No,
like
we actually-
feedback?
We're like that best friend scenario. We lucked out. What happened was we had a tragic car accident like the year before we got married. So
Oh my
it
God.
was almost like as if I could have lost my wife before she's my wife. So like that kind of
Wow.
shifted our dynamic with everything. So even with the baby and all that kind of stuff, like it's made our whole situation better. So I think you guys need a near death, experience.
Okay, so there we go. So that
And
is
then
the
just
key
basically, yeah.
to a healthy marriage.
But once you have that chance of losing someone like that,
Yeah.
Well,
not
we've
from a
done some-
breakup,
Wow.
it kind of solidifies it.
We've
Yeah.
we've done some pretty terrible shows together. So I mean,
That's true.
Could you imagine if you actually equated a bad show to him almost losing his wife?
You know what this-
Yeah, man, I get it.
You know
like
this-
this one time I bombed in front of like 3 drunk
But there
people on a Monday.
there are comics that think that way.
Well,
Unfortunately,
here's the thing. So the car accident was after I had a terrible show. So I bombed, right? And she was there, and then she almost died. I'm like, no, she didn't die.
Guys, Tommy,
There you
Tony's
go.
also a
Wait,
comic.
there's
That's awesome.
there's so many things I want to ask you. Do we want to do any news today, or should we just talk to Emily?
I don't know. Well, what else is on that clipboard?
Oh, that's so
I don't know if I
funny.
answered all of your questions.
I think it was more, I just really feel for people listening at home that don't know what to do. And I think some people
yeah.
like they're talented at other things like their job, they have a job,
Well,
and then, like I'm over here unemployed being like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Like I also can protest because I didn't have a job.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
totally.
So like,
And I'll
I
say
just feel for
this.
people who don't know what to do. So
having been in Marietta, which is like 30 minutes outside of Atlanta,
Yeah.
it's like classic suburbs, right?
yeah.
Life there, so different than here. I mean, wildly different. And we were very, very blessed to be there. Like our neighbors were so cool. They had these like adorable kids. Came like,
well,
neighboring.
they still have them. They have not passed. But yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like they were like sweet kids. We like took them out to ice cream and stuff. And
Miss
like
them.
I'm like in that pre-dad phase. So I'm like kind of thinking like I'm like studying kids. Like, well, what do I want to do when I'm a dad? Like, how would I? So it's like fun to like hang out with our neighbors and see their family. And it was very relaxed there. We were outside of a city, and I think, and we had some acquaintances that we interacted with that maybe didn't have the most progressive outlook on some of the things happening now. And I kind of like I'm a little bit more able to like hear it, process it, and think like, everybody's coming from a different place. I'm just going to try and like listen a bit more. I think you got a little more frustrated at certain individuals who were drunk at the house ranting about things.
Well, because if you're drunk at my house, then when I ask you or challenge you on something and then you get frustrated, I will just very quickly remind you,
Fair, yeah.
it is my house. And so I think, and again, I am always open to having conversations, but I notice that
it was a lot of conversation with ending like I'm just telling it like it is.
Yeah.
And that's like a fine line when you say that. It's like, okay, dude.
yeah, you're
but
telling it like it is for you, a person of complete privilege. So of course, I guess the biggest thing that always rubs for me is when people are like, yeah, but this is what it is. I'm like, that's what it is for you. And I'm also not saying that you have to accept everything and that, you know, that the that anybody is saying right now that feels in opposition of you. I'm not saying that you have to accept it. I'm not saying that it's real for everyone, but to say that there are millions and millions of people, specifically Black and brown bodies right now, that are saying we are not being seen, and for you to be in the opposite end of that and say, well, I'm telling it like it is choosing to ignore millions of people. And so that's just for me where I'm like, no. See, what you're not seeing is where you are coming at this conversation from. And that's just my biggest thing of like, own where it is that you are coming into this conversation.
But the biggest part I took away from it is like, oh, we are like, even just being a little outside of Atlanta, it's like we're away from this. We're in the suburbs. We're not hearing stuff going on. It's like it's very removed. So it's very easy to do that. Like, turn it off. I don't want to see it. Or I don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Versus being here where it's like on the ground in the belly of the beast, right?
Yeah.
Like even just being, and we're close to Atlanta. I mean, we were really right there, but it's just, you just move a little bit away and it's a different world completely.
Oh, yeah.
So it takes an effort to almost, like I had to stop myself from reading news nonstop and watching stuff because I was getting anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
I know.
important.
Rightfully so.
But on that note, hold on. I do want to pull something up because it is kind of on topic with this.
Okay.
Tony, that link that says This Week in Progress. So we do different segments on the show. This is a new one I came up with called just, you know, something progressive.
This Week in Progress.
The world's kind of like, but, you know, I try to find fun stuff as much as I can.
Sure.
You know, I had some other things for Hell No, Let's Go and whatnot, but I decided, you know, we have our guest here. I just wanted to chat with Emily so much. So,
Thanks, guys.
yeah, he'll pull it up in a second.
But I think going back to what you were saying, though, which
Wait, here.
is...
Rachel, can you read this for us?
Oh, she's adorable. After nearly 110 years of naval aviation, the U.S. Navy has welcomed its first Black female tactical jet pilot. That is insane.
First?
Yeah.
One?
Now, hold on. Just to clarify, it wasn't that after 110 years it was first time allowed. It was just that now it's taken that long, you know, for someone, for a Black female to make it through the ranks. But pretty cool, right? What a first to be, right?
Soaring through the glass ceilings of both her gender and race, Lieutenant Madeline, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, Swagel?
Yes, let's go with Swagel.
All right, sorry, Madeline, has made history as the U.S. Navy's first Black female tactical aircraft pilot.
By the
Dude,
way,
I want to meet Madeline.
Madeline, if we can Skype you in, we would love to have you on House Rules. I'm gonna see if I can get her on.
I will manifest that.
I'll hit her with a DM. Say, can we just talk to you about how cool it is to be this?
That's so cool. Her completion of the tactical air training program paves the way for her to fly fighter jets. Dude, that's rad.
Wow.
That is a job I could not handle. Fighting jets? Are you kidding?
Are you kidding? You could barely handle riding a bicycle.
Okay, well, I did 24 miles yesterday, so let's calm down. Okay.
pretty amazing.
No, that is incredible. But I'm saying, like, if you're near any kind of car or like
yeah, I don't,
a loud
sorry, I don't want to
dog.
get hit. Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, she's.
Yeah,
You know.
I just thought since it was on brand of like.
No, I think that's great.
Because look, I like finding these things because I'd stop and there's a lot we can fix in the world for sure. There's a lot we could get better on. But I think we owe it to ourselves and to each other to remember, like, life is still pretty freaking great. I'm trying to not curse.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of life, even with the pandemic and everything. Like, when you just think about, like, meeting a guy at a protest, right? Like, there's so much that's, like, awesome right now. And I think we live in these, like, misery cycles. And I saw so many people, like, on 4th of July, like, why would I ever celebrate America? Yes, there are things in this country that we need to work on. 100%. But to just take that stance of like the whole country sucks, screw it all. It's like that's, first of all, it doesn't help anybody. You're going to turn off people who are kind of in your camp and now they're like, oh, you want to burn it all down, screw that. And it's just not a realistic way to look at the world. Like, I think it's so much more important to remember, like, no. Look at this is good. This is inspiration right here. Look at this and say, how can we have more of that? That's the way to lead the conversation, not tear it all down. Everything sucks. And I feel like we're getting trapped in these cycles of that. And it's so toxic for your mental and emotional state.
Preach, man.
So that's why I wanted to find that, to share some good news.
I love that.
I agree. I think that with all of these things, our identifiers being taken away. So our jobs, our, so many things, our routine that we are used to having are being taken away, and they're affecting everybody in different ways. And it's incredibly scary. I mean, now again, seeing where it was like LA is closing down again, I'm like, great. So I don't even know if unemployment's being extended. I don't know now if I'm going to go back to a job. I don't know. And even it's like, at least for me, like with bartending, that was just to make some extra money so we could have a more, cushy, future here coming forward. It's not like that's my career, but it's still very unsettling of, everything in the game has been taken away, right? But I think you're right, which is, and I've been so grateful to you of like, you're like, we got to get out. We, went and did the whole, bike ride through the South Bay. And like, there are so many beautiful, wonderful things still happening. And I would just like to say, you are right that we need to pay attention to progress. And that is important. But a lot of why people are expressing the things that maybe make certain people uncomfortable, which is like, talking about Black Lives Matter, talking about, qualified immunity, talking about inherent bias, talking about all of these things that sometimes make us uncomfortable because they challenge us in ways that we're not used to being challenged, is so that we can create more space for these
100%.
I will say this, that even in this celebration, right, it is almost like a pure example though of systemic racism, because like you said, it was like this pilot, she was never like not allowed to be a pilot, but because of maybe prevention of like her, like of the majority of her education, or like women being put down or not like being it's just a kind of an example of like how people treat each other. That's why it's taken so long for this to happen, which is crazy. But yeah.
So I think it's two things.
I think it's having a balance of both.
Yeah.
You have to have both. Because yes, like to just be like, life's great, whatever. That's the wrong attitude, obviously. Like there's so much to work on. But I guess what I'm referring to is when I see people who are just like, everything sucks, burn it up. Like,
totally.
what are you doing? Because people who are like actually like want to like support progressive movements see that, and they watch people like burning things on. It's like, well, now you lost me.
Well, it's like with coronavirus, we should be talking about the recovery rate too. It's like the news is all negative because
100%.
That's where the money
Fear porn.
is. It's totally. Yeah. I mean, that's where the money is, and people though are just buying into it and eating it alive. And like, you say global pandemic. I expected people to be like coughing up blood at these protests.
Right.
Thousands of people, not one cough.
Yeah,
that's
but you're
I don't want to preach that like it's not real, but I'm just saying.
Dr. Browning.
Yeah, dear Lord. I'm just saying though, there isn't enough celebration in the news for sure.
Right.
Well, I mean, we can't even get into like what the new, like we can't even go there right now. But you're absolutely right, which is, and that's why so much that I talk about like conscious language. The language that we use is so vital, and it seems like dorky of like, conscious language, you should be aware, like don't call women crazy. But just, it's even more than that of like, you're exactly right of like, everything is not terrible, and there are dualities that exist. The duality that exists right now is we're seeing all of these really awful things rise to the surface, and we're also seeing all of these beautiful new things rise to the surface as well. And so they're not mutually exclusive. And there was one more thing you just said, and it struck for me, but I forgot. So
I will tell you this. I think we are at the catalyst, I think that's the right word, of restructuring all of Western society, maybe 100%. All of global society. And like one thing I'm keeping an eye on right now. So we just saw there basically is no school this coming fall for the LA. Yeah, the LA Teachers Union already voted to have an online fall semester.
Dude.
And so, but I think this is good. It's going to suck for a lot of people for a little bit, but and I'm not taking away from that. We have friends with kids that just like, they were like, no, I gave up trying to teach them. Like, it's not going to work. And they have, like, if you have a job and you're working from home, you can't teach your kids. But even Tony and I were talking about this before the podcast. A lot of stuff we learn in school isn't applicable to being an adult. There's so many things that I would rather know as an adult. Like, why in school, why is there no class on how to do your taxes?
I know.
What's a mortgage? What would be a great class in school? Here's $1,000 of fake money. Practice investing it. You could put it in the stock market. You could buy some gold.
I mean, the only thing that we're teaching kids in school right now that's applicable is coding. Other than that, there's
even
that's
that,
just because the rich want to get richer. Like,
Right.
it's just like,
well,
let's set them up.
that is true, but coding is a skill that
Right.
that is valuable. But the rich will always want to get richer.
Yeah, but like that's nuts. What you're saying is spot on.
But like also
ridiculous.
even more so, like how come we don't teach kids classes about like, hey, when you're thinking about having a relationship, here are some things that are really important in look for finding a partner. What's some emotional intelligence? How to communicate.
Well,
in a healthy way.
again,
Like,
because
we don't
if
do any of that.
Because if we allow people real education and real free thought, then this two-party system that we have wouldn't exist. And I know some people are like, "Oh, far out thought, LaForce." Yeah, think about it a little bit longer and let it resonate
tell you
with you
something.
because it's true.
I'm gonna-
I just have to just stay on that for one more second,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
like. It is so true of like we have and you know, I'm sure that Betsy DeVos, she is here to learn something and her journey is her own and I will leave space for her, but I will also say it is so damaging
That woman
to
hasn't learned a
see what
damn thing
she
her whole
is
life.
doing to our country and our education system. There is no reason why all of our textbooks should come out and be voted on by the Texas State Board. That's insane because we're not actually teaching anybody anything. So the education system that we have was built out of teaching people to go into factories and
Totally,
learn how to
100%.
hit a button, do this, punch in. That's why there's bells. That's why there's a lunch. There's all of those things. We have not created a system that works now in order to educate people on the progress that we've made. And because if we do, this two-party system doesn't work. It doesn't. It clearly, when everyone's like, we're
Yeah.
so divided. No, we're not. What's happening is we're being asked to divide because we only have two systems of thought. And if you don't fall in line with these two systems of thought, then you're nuts.
I can tell you this right now.
I'm literally like crying.
It's true.
I'm sorry.
It's 100%
It's true.
Dude, you know
And
me.
it's infuriating.
That's what. Listen, I fully understand, and I'll preface by I've said it many, many times. I'll say it again. I'm not in any way, shape, or form a Trump supporter at all. But I'm just reminding people: if Joe Biden becomes president, very little will change. That like, and I simply say that to say like, don't think like we did it, and it's like okay, that,
Right, I agree with you on
Virtually
that.
nothing will change. Honestly, the speeches might be even worse. You know, it's like it's not like
Hilarious.
like more incoherent and like less like
A little bit more pageantry, but yeah.
you get what I'm
not-
saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
very little will change. Change happens on the ground level at a like a grassroots local level. Change also happens from like meeting your neighbors and like building a relationship with them. Like that's what people got to do, man. I understand it's like anybody but Trump, fine, that's fine, but like that is not enough. That's like 1% of what has to happen.
But it's also choosing to be uncomfortable. It's
Yeah,
choosing
100%,
to.
you're right.
It's choosing, and it's also not to say that because everything like because you're white and like now you haven't paid attention to black people, like you have to do everything for black people. That's not what we're saying either. But what it is that you have to choose to be uncomfortable. It's not saying, well, I don't know anything about the school system, so like my kids are fine. They go to private school, so I'm not paying attention. Or it doesn't mean that any of these things that we're talking about, that because you're in a position of privilege, you have to throw yourself on the sword. That's not helpful for anybody, and
Right.
nobody needs a martyr. But what we do need is for you to be okay to sit and be uncomfortable for a minute so that maybe we can have conversations long enough to begin to go, oh my God, you're right. Maybe we should have a different way of, you know, doing these very simple things that we've been doing for so long that aren't working.
But the problem is that the internet does not allow for nuance. So we live in such a
Yes.
we live in such a binary world. Like, I mean, it's so insane.
because we have things like Twitter where it only allows for like, what is it, 240 characters now? Is it 240?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, then make your point, and now you're going to be hung on a cross because of those 240 characters that you said in like 2005.
But the like the way, I know, right? But the thing is
It wasn't even 240 characters.
the way like that's why like I'm so if I could give any advice to anyone, which I don't really think I'm in a position to do, but if you're listening to this and I have one thought to give, it's get off the internet and talk to people in person.
Amen.
Especially people that you wouldn't talk to normally, because like when like for me like I was going down these rabbit holes like lately with Twitter and everything, and it started to feel like I'm in this position where I either commit to a life of being forever ashamed of being a white person, or I'm basically a Nazi. And it's like neither one of those is a reality that actually exists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's,
Oh, wait, finish that
no,
thought.
it's like the internet doesn't allow for like nuanced conversation. It's like it's this or that, and if
Yeah.
you know, and if you disagree with one thing, you're the enemy. It's like, what are you talking about?
Because the internet is also not where we should be having these conversations. Because real change doesn't happen on the internet.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, first off, like, I was always afraid when all this like Black Lives Matter movement started coming up. I was afraid of being like, well, now I have to experience the white guilt. And I honestly want to say that I don't think white guilt exists, because the moment I accepted my privilege was one of the freest moments I've ever experienced in my life. Of going to my first protest, and nobody Black made me feel weird for being there. And not only that, they called white brothers and sisters to the front, and so you're being useful, and like you're not set apart. It's praised that you're there. Like, just admitting that systemic racism is alive and well, and that you have privilege will free you, and you won't have to be so defensive, and you won't have to be a Nazi. And that all came from just fucking, excuse me, but
You can
listen.
curse, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
just listening. It's almost like, what if you took a break? You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say 240 characters. Just take some time and actually listen. Follow people on Instagram that are Black. Listen to them. Talk to your neighbor. Actually listen to what like someone with the opposite political point of view as you is trying to say, instead of feeling you have to argue to be right. It's so crazy.
Or feeling that you have to be heard. And I think in a way of, obviously I started this by saying utilize your voice, but I'm meaning, I think you're so right of like, we are so quick to, I found now that sometimes if like I go back and forth with someone and I say, well, I just see it differently. And allowing that to be that, like talk about not necessarily coming from a place of guilt, but a place of like, I was not put here to solve all of these issues. Neither were you, neither were you, right? Like, it's not any of our jobs to save the world, but it is our job of like, I think especially so many faith-driven folks that I know, and I'm like, God, and I know that you came from the background of the church too. I'm like, the amount of times that I've been told to like be obedient and to do this and to do that. And I'm like, why we are not in churches just going, right now is our time to listen. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up a bunch of different people to preach to you today that might look differently than you, and you might not have the same experience than you. And all we're asking is just to listen today. So we're going to start with a prayer of that, hoping everybody is going to be open and that Jesus is here with us right now. And we're going to close our eyes in prayer, and then we're going to listen to some people.
So
that should not be a radical idea.
Yeah, I think the problem is so many people in the country live in places where it's so homogenous.
Yeah.
That it's because the thing is, it's kind of a catch-22, because it's like, is systemic racism real? Well, if you say yes, then it's like, show it to me. Well, I can't show it to you because it's not a specific thing. Well, then how do I know it's real? Well, trust me, it's there. Yeah, but what is it? It's like, well, I can't. It's it's like a circle of like. So if you don't live in a place that's that's diverse, or you have individuals you can like understand, then it's really hard to conceptualize it, because it just feels like the boogeyman far away shouting at you. Know what I mean?
I could show you. I'd be like, okay, your house. Well, when your grandpa died, did you get any money? Yeah. Okay. Well, where did that money come from? Oh, your grandpa's house after you sold it after he died. Oh, that $100,000 got split up between your siblings, and before that, your
but
grandpa
that's
got
wealth.
his money. Oh, yeah, but I feel like I could be totally wrong here, but isn't systemic racism like also a part of like them not
redlining and
not
starting
having
way
the
back-
wealth?
Yeah.
Like, so if they can't own land, they have no wealth to pass to their kids, so we're automatically ahead of the curve because I have 4 or 5 generations of land inheritance, whereas like my fellow like Black friend.
Yeah, I'm not taking away from that. I'm simply saying like, but then if you're a poor white person, that situation doesn't apply to you.
interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like if you're a poor white person,
Right.
and I'm not saying systemic racism isn't real. I
Yeah.
understand it is real in many cases.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of it. I'm simply saying if you're a poor white person,
Right.
and I've seen these folks many times. I did this will be relevant in a second. I did like a 32-day comedy tour across the country in October and September of 2016. So I went to very rural areas, and it was all Trump country. And I saw these very like low income parts of the country that were mostly white, and they felt like to simplify it and leave out a lot of stuff, that just the simple version is that poor people in this country from places like rural towns and factory towns who felt like they've been left behind by big city liberals, the last thing they want to hear about is their privilege, because all they see in their community are their houses getting less and less valuable, the jobs getting taken away, nobody cares about them. And I'm not, of course, like privilege is real, but to those folks, it's so near impossible for them to understand it. if all they look around and see is poverty in their communities and getting worse and worse. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to that I would what I always tell people is privilege isn't equated with money. Sometimes it is, like in what you're talking about of like folks, if you like, let's say that you're from the deep south and your money actually does come many, many generations back, but you guys lived on a plantation, hence you had slave owners, you had more money than, somebody, whatever, right? So there are those instances, but there's also instances where your privilege doesn't have to do with your money. When we talk about white privilege, that literally means the privilege because of the color of your skin. That's it. It's not tied to financial gain or anything like that, education, nothing. The basis of white privilege simply means that you walk around not aware of the color of your skin because you don't experience any sort of prejudice because of the color of your
I
skin.
understand that. What I'm saying is, if it's which is many parts of the country, and I think this is important because the only way for us to be like actually like unified to like have real progress, like you can't like ignore like huge swaths of the population. For big parts of the country, if especially if they're like poor and relatively uneducated and haven't traveled a lot, like it's like for them to really understand that there's nothing in their world that they can reference. I mean, you could give certain examples like, well, most people in leadership are the same color as you, most people in media. Like you can break it down that way and they'll be like, okay, I kind of get it. But it's really hard for them day to day to see
Well, I think what's happening more, which is what are the things, their needs. So it's really when you go back to that of like they're feeling that their needs are not being met. So there's two things happening. One, how can their local government do something where they're actually supporting their needs and creating a community? Because unfortunately,
100%.
those people are voting for people that are taking away their jobs. Because that's the sad thing, is that a lot of times those folks are actually voting in opposition of themselves because you have elite Democrats who have been shown to them time and time again. And in many ways, there's plenty of problems with the Democratic Party. We've seen it, that Biden got pushed to the front when there were very clear other like front runners. We know all these things. They're factual, yada, yada, et cetera. The point being, and you can like fact check me on that later.
And,
I'm just
maybe
saying that's
Clinton has been in Epstein's plane like too many times.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know,
20
26?
27?
27, okay.
Like there's a lot of like
but
major.
Trump's also all the powerful people.
Sure, but the point being that that the
I agree.
Democrats, like just because you vote blue doesn't mean that like there's no blood on your hands, right? Figuratively, if there's blood on your hands,
Please wash them and go
just-
to
yeah,
turn
don't-
yourself in.
don't call me. but the point being that clearly what you're talking about is that there are many places in the country that have long been forgotten, and that also has to do with this idea of progress, which I've talked a lot about, which like our progress as a society has outgrown where we really are. So there's all these places. Also why, like, if you're, Amazon, hi, I would love to talk to Jeff Bezos. So many questions. But the point being of like, if you're automating all these jobs, you need to be taxed on that. Because it's like that is the problem, where it's like these people are voting for people like for Trump, which it makes sense of like they felt that this person saw them and felt that this person like identified with their plight. And by all intents and purposes, it seemed like he did. The difference is just that like he also has taken his jobs overseas and hasn't paid taxes and all of these other things that, like, is in opposition of these folks. But that's what I would say to that, which is going at those people being like, recognize your white privilege. That's not a way to start the conversation.
Right.
Because they're also like,
Well,
cool, we've lost everything we own and we don't have anything. So like right now we're not really concerned with Black lives.
The thing
and
is,
that's also not to say that those folks are completely like a hateful, are in cycles of hateful racism. Maybe some of them are, but I also know a lot of those folks, it's simply like where most people are in this country, where we talk about how divided everybody is. And I always say that most everyone's inherent values are the same. They want to know they're safe. They want to know that they can pay their bills, and they want to know that they're safe in their community.
we need some kind of like cultural exchange program, because it's so insane to me that like
talk more about that.
the fact that white people from poor rural America don't realize that they have so much more in common with black people from the inner city than they do with like someone like Donald Trump. I mean, those folks, like a black family from inner city Baltimore and a white family from like rural, like middle of nowhere Michigan, they have so much more in common than like the Republican or Democratic leadership has with either of those. They're just manipulating people. That's why, honestly, and I'm not a Kanye fan, but that's why like the Democrats get so mad at Kanye, because he's like, oh, like you can think for yourself. And it's like, oh no, we want to like control this group. The same way that like, Republican leadership does not give a damn at all about pro-life issues, but they know
Oh yeah.
that the church
Don't
base.
even get me started on
But it's
that.
the same thing. They know that it's a fail-safe. It's a fail-safe issue. It's the same way that like Joe Biden says stuff like, "Well, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black." It's like, no, you're just trying. You're catering to the lowest common
But
denominator.
that is also why I will go back and say that I'm hoping that something that like I don't even know where to start with this, but it's a duality system does not work.
Right.
There are 40 million people in California alone. So now you want to talk about how big this nation is, and everybody's like, we're so divided. No, we're not. The problem is we have two parties, and they vote on BS things like that, saying that we care about lives. No, you don't. You want to know how I know that you don't know that you don't care about them? Is you keep cutting funding from
know.
education. That's how I know that you don't give a
So
rat's
insane.
ass. There are still people in Flint, Michigan that don't even have clean water. So don't even come at me and tell me that you give a shit about things like that, because what our country has shown that we really care about is making money. And that's the same for both sides of the board. So what we really have to figure out is how we can actually bring all of these things to the front. And it's like that, you're so right, where it's like start within your community. What is working within the inner part of your community and what's not working? Because I'll guarantee you that no matter where you come from, the number one thing that's probably not working is your education system.
I really truly believe that like most people are good when you set them up to be their best self.
100%.
And we just are in this like perpetual cycle of like, it's like we're all waiting to catch the worst example of the people we don't like.
100%.
You know what I mean?
And people are setting traps for people.
I feel like we're talking a lot. We brought Emily on and we haven't even let her.
I am just taking it in. This is a euphoric experience. Like I'm crying.
Tony, you can chime in,
tearing
too.
Up. Like
I was just letting you guys run out the line
Yeah.
a little bit, but Emily, I don't want to cut you off. You go ahead.
well, no, I'm literally just listening, because there's a lot of, like, for instance, I will say it was very humbling for you to when you shared that experience that you've had of actually going to states that I've never been and actually experience these communities. And it just like, I just want to say, like, it feels good to get like to be wrong, you know,
Well,
like it feels not be wrong or just be enlightened.
It was
and so I feel just you guys are enlightening.
I would like to interject something.
Yeah,
As
please.
far as the coming white guy from like a poor part of town, I'm from the Midwest, so I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
suburb
Yeah,
of
so you would
Milwaukee,
know.
we're I'm poor white trash. But and my wife, you don't know this, Emily, is black. So all my in-laws, I'm the only white guy at every event, right? So this whole second civil rights movement, I know where my place is. But when we were on lockdown and there was an actual curfew, right? I was in Orange County visiting my family. A set of like aunts and uncles were in a rush to get back to Palos Verdes, like as if they didn't want to get pulled over, because for them getting pulled over past curfew is a death sentence. You know, it could be. Me, I was like, fucking curfew, I don't give a shit about that. And I'm like, holy shit, that right there is that white privilege that you're so subconscious, you're unaware of. You know what I mean? Like, I never would have thought my life would be in jeopardy by being out past a certain time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So 100%,
Crazy.
I agree with you. It's totally real, and I understand that. You understand that because we live in a place that's diverse. What I guess I'm trying to explain is I feel, and you maybe you would know better from being from the Midwest or something, but I feel like for a lot of folks who live in a homogenous place, it's so hard for, like, they hear things on the news, but it's so hard for them to actually understand that, because they don't, like, there's no one in their community, in their life, that they have like had a personal relationship with that's like gone through that.
Yeah.
So they just see it as like, that's the news getting us saying, so it's you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
I agree with you.
And I don't know what the answer is, but I don't. It's got to be a place of like where everybody's coming from a different place here, a different level of understanding, et cetera. Let's start with that and just do way more of like, hey man, your experience. I don't know it. I just, if you don't mind, like let's like share experiences and
To me,
grow.
It's also like leadership.
Yeah,
Because
we have trash
we
leadership.
we now have a country that's based off of like they will do anything. It feels like when you know that your friend's in a relationship with somebody that they know that they're not supposed to be, but they're still just clinging, and they're like, no, he's great, and like coming up with every
Is that like the
excuse.
Trump base?
No, I'm saying America.
Oh, yeah.
And and I'm talking about the people that are in positions of power are like holding on of like, we can't let anybody get ahead of us because we're the best country ever and we know everything. And so everything is about profit.
Right.
Listen, I understand that money talks. I understand that like there are other threats. I got it. But I also understand humans. And I also know that what we're doing right now, like I keep saying this is 2020. So this is the best we've been able to figure out. Friends,
Well,
what we're dealing with right now is the best and the brightest. This is where we've gotten. Okay? So something's not working. So holding on like this, being like, this is what works. You know what we need is we actually need a president to go, and this will never happen, okay? Unless you vote for me. This is not me actually voting for president. But I'm just saying running for president. But the point being where it's like we need somebody to go, okay, so this is as far as we've gotten, and we've made, to your point, so much progress, right? We have seen so many, but also we've done ourselves a disservice because we have presented education and history in certain ways. We have allowed unions to get out of control. So what we have to do is we have to find our way back to a balance and back to a center.
Well, I mean, there's certainly, you and I have talked at length about how, like, we didn't learn about Juneteenth or Tulsa in school.
No.
Like, we learned that.
I learned about it from an HBO show about superheroes.
Yeah, Watchmen.
So good.
I had learned it slightly before from like a podcast or something, but still, though, like that's an example. And that's something I can point to, or maybe you highlighted to me or whatever, when people, if they buck of like, well, why is diversity in a writer's room important to get shit like that on television? Because I didn't know about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one of the things that you and I have talked at length about, and we're like, neither one of us can understand, it's so like mind-boggling, is like how much the hyper wealthy have and how little they give back. And I understand not wanting to pay taxes because you don't trust governments. I don't trust governments. If you have the mind, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, I just understand the mindset of like, I don't trust the government to use my tax dollars appropriately. I'm going to hide it away, right? But I just want to, I've said this to you many times, but just as a reference, when I read this, it blew my mind. So Bezos and Bill Gates together have like over $200 billion. Like collectively, I think it's like 225, right? They're the two richest men in the world, aside from perhaps like the oil guys in the Middle East and like the Russian kleptocrats, because they don't have to report their money to anybody. Either way, right? So Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos have over $200 billion. If you had $1 billion, $1 billion in cash, like it's just sitting in a pile of cash, it's not getting interest or anything, it's just sitting in a pile of cash. If you took that money and you spent $1,000 an hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, nonstop, $1,000 an hour, it would take you 114 years to spend that $1 billion. And Bezos and Gates have over $200 billion. And Bill Gates has done a lot of charity. I understand that. But it's still, when you hear that, when you really understand that if you spend $1,000, like, why are you not just funding so many things that could fix the world? Like, what is going on? You have so much money, like insane amounts. I mean, you could give away 10%, $10 billion. 10% of that's it.
But I think you're exactly right, which is, so many of these conversations, it's like, I feel like the one thing that everybody can agree on, which is we all need to look up. Yeah, everybody's looking at each other and looking for the enemy. And I just want to go, no. I need you to stop and you need to look up. So right now it's like, so much of that is just absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Because, again, where people are like, in this debate of if the unemployment gets extended, right? And a lot of people who, particularly like conservatives, are like, yeah, but then like nobody wants to work. And it's like, okay, so number one, we're not paying attention to the fact that the majority of like the working class are being paid more on unemployment than they are to actually show up and do their jobs. That's a massive problem.
That's how pathetic our wages are.
Because that's what I'm saying. And it's like, and I'll also let you know, like the fact that people feel like they're on holiday because at best they're making $900 a week. That's a massive problem. Again, it's 2020. Wake up, okay?
Finish that.
No.
I was gonna say, like I love what you're saying. Look up, because I think our whole lives we were taught to just trust the government. America is the best. Our government knows what we're doing. We just trust that they're doing it. We don't ask questions. So when there's a pothole at the end of our street that we have to avoid every day for like a year or two, we don't realize that we ourselves could take our ass to city council and like go to one meeting and then come before a group of people and say, I have a pothole that I have to like drive around every day. You need to fix this, and keep going, that maybe they'll make a change. It's like we don't think like that. We don't think that we can make a difference.
I really do love the United States. I feel very blessed to live here. But the Pledge of Allegiance is sort of creepy when you think about it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Soup's
right?
Yeah.
If you remember those like propaganda videos from World War II with the Nazis and shit?
Yeah.
And you show those in history class, and you're like, oh my God, that's so weird and eerie. And then you ever watch like a U.S. Army commercial, and you're like, oh, how is that any different?
Yeah.
That's our brand.
Yeah.
Like,
well, dude,
you're so right.
You know me. I'm a very big proponent of let's pull our military home. Think about how much money we spend on our fucking military. And if we took even like a third of that and reinvested it back into like schools, food deserts, infrastructure, healthcare, like, oh, we can't fix healthcare. Yeah, we could. Stop buying jets. Stop. Like, what? Anyway, I don't,
Well, it's also, again, it's just about profit. It's not difficult. It's like, how do we, I mean, again, where it's like, you mean to tell me that we have all these things we haven't been able to figure out how to like curb certain cancers? It's like, because like big pharma, we know that opiates are a massive problem, yet we know how much money they make, so it doesn't matter. And then it's like all of these things just keep feeding into each other and nobody gives a shit because the people at the top make so much money. I mean, again, the fact that there's was like an $8 billion budget and then they're like, well, we just don't know how we're going to help the economy right now. Yeah, you do.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, listen, I understand that Joe Biden is probably a better option than Donald Trump come November. But like, don't make any misconceptions that the Democrats have any good intentions for you. Because on the point I was making before, the one person running for president, Tulsi Gabbard, who was very adamant about bringing our troops home, stopping these ridiculous foreign dictatorship, like regime change wars, right, and putting that money back into the U.S., they pushed her out immediately. Immediately, the Clintons came after her so hard and tried to make her a Russian asset. Why? She's the only one talking about ending these endless wars. Our whole adult life, our entire adult life, we have been in Iraq and Afghanistan. For what? Nothing. Literally nothing.
Yeah.
I know it was supposed to be a comedy podcast, but...
I mean, I feel like we're funny enough to
feels like
let
I'm
it
at
ride.
church.
But you're right. And so if what Alex was talking about, if you're listening to this or watching and going, I don't know what he's talking about, just Google the industrial military complex. I know we're giving you so much homework, but
dude, public school did not educate you. I've learned a lot more from YouTube and podcasts than I ever learned in school.
Well, and that's the thing where it's just like, when so many people and I have compassion and hold space for my friends and people I don't even know that are like, we don't know what we're going to do, Rachel, if our kids don't go back to school. But the one thing that I hope I hope that my intention comes more than the impact of this statement, but it's as simple as like, your kids are not missing out on anything this year if they don't get traditional learning.
Yeah.
They're not missing anything. And I stand by that of like, when we talk about, getting ready to start a family and people are like, are you sure you want to bring kids into this right now? I'm like, yeah, because I'm hoping to spread more of what I believe is true and hopefully creating a bigger community and more people. You have a son too, and I'm sure you're shaking your head. Same thing of like, we need to continue. I mean, again, it is 2020. This is the future, and this is as far as we've gotten. And it's not that we're all idiots, and it's not that we're stupid or everyone is evil. It's that we are humans and humans are both like good and evil and life is complicated. And, it's like, think about how long it takes to like, get your life back together when you get knocked out from a heartbreak or a job transition.
Amen.
Or like, we have all these things in our society that eat up our energy. And so we don't have a lot of time to go, well, I'm just going to have some wine and read about the military industrial complex. Like, nobody, who the F wants to do that? Nobody. But I think it's these small integrated steps. Because again, where it's like the government is saying, well, we don't have any money to bail out these people. And so like, you just have to, you're not asking to bail people out. Let me be very clear. Most people want to actually work and feel that they're of service because it gives them a sense of purpose. So anytime you hear somebody saying that, I encourage you to think about when you hear somebody say that. It is so incorrect and the antithesis of what makes humans work. The problem is, why would anybody want to go to a job that's shitty and they're treated like crap because they're replaceable and Amazon's like, hey, we're with you, but they pay people $12.99 an hour and don't give them sick time. Beat it.
100%. And just
we got rid of our Amazon. Makes things very difficult.
Good job.
Well, we re-signed up recently.
What did we get?
I had to get
I
products.
did get my hair product.
I'm going to cancel again, but listen, I guess I'm at fault here. But like, there's this shampoo you need, and it's hard to get. So I went on Amazon, and the shipping was going to.
That's because my hair is falling out.
The shipping was going to cost as much as a month of Prime. So I was like, well, I might as well just get the month of Prime and then order some other shit and then cancel it. And okay, but you had something.
Oh, I was going to comment off of that.
Please.
Yeah, okay. So like I was going to cancel and then they were like, but you already paid for the rest of the month. Would you like us to remind you to cancel at the end? And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And so I'm like, I want to buy these books. I have 3 books I want to buy. I'm going to buy them from a local LA Black-owned business. Great. I don't know how I feel about I have a point to this. So
I do like that the Amazon voice is like a British socialite.
yeah, absolutely, because they make it so convenient.
Yeah.
And so 2 of the books didn't come. And after
Of
3
course.
weeks, I emailed the store, and I was so excited about them and so excited about these books. And they were like, "Oh, well, actually, those books are out of stock, so we're gonna refund you." And of course, I didn't know when I was gonna get refunded and blah blah blah. And I go, I had to reach out, like you didn't tell me that they were out of stock when I bought them. Like a part of me is just like. And I'm like, oh, right. When you have billions of dollars and you underpay people, you can create a system that is so efficient and so successful and so perfect that now I have been so just freaking spoiled of how
Yeah.
customer service should work. It's like, oh, you mean you have 2 people working at this bookstore? Of course you're not going to reach out to me personally when one
Right.
book is what
Sure.
I'm saying, when you don't have thousands and thousands of people working.
But
for
that
you.
is so delicious is the only word that comes to mind for me. I don't know why that's the word. I think I'm hungry. But you're right of that awareness of slowing down, because it is where I was like, if there's anything that we can get anywhere, even if it's more difficult, that is not on Amazon, let's do it. And then again, my hair stuff, maybe something for the bike. I know we ended up getting a bike rack off of Amazon, but I'm actually pretty proud to say, I mean, if you're thinking about it, that's a major shift.
So this is. Oh, sorry. You keep going.
No, that's a major shift for our buying power. And I think specifically it's for the tax bracket that I'm in, my money is so important. And you're right of it's irritating to be well, why would they not let us know? Or what? There's something so almost like a ping that goes off for us, right? When you get an email, it's your package is shipped. You're someone sees me, right? And it's how many? There used to be one store. There used to be one store, and you'd take your horse and you'd wrap it up, and then you'd go in and you just get a sack of flour, and you'd go home, and whatever you could make with that flour and whatever you could figure out how to farm, that's what you ate. And then if you didn't have it, then you just starve until the next week when you went back and you got sugar.
Do you know how the farmers market started? The one
No.
here in LA? So the one at the Grove, it's the food court. It was a real farmers market because that big gas pump there, that's one of the first gas pumps that existed in the city.
gosh.
And then all the farmers realized, oh, everybody comes here to fill up. Let's set up our crops and chickens and everything like that. And it became a farmers market is because all the people drove by to fill up their cars. And well, I'm here. Might as well get some groceries.
I love that.
But this is the middle ground I found. And I encourage other people to do this. They're should I cancel Amazon? Should I not? I don't know what to do. I've decided, and I think if you have a little bit of money, you can play with this a tad, you can do this. If it's something where you'd probably just get it at Target or CVS anyway, it's fine. Get it on Amazon. Those are mega big companies. Don't feel bad about it. But if it's a product that you could spend a little more and get it from a small business, especially a minority-owned business or a business that really needs help, just pay extra and do that.
Yeah.
I know the
Sorry,
mic-
the
Yeah,
pop.
pay the extra $2 so you can give it to a family's pocket rather than Jeff.
Right. So if it's something if it's a
Ugh. Also, can we talk about how annoying it is? His name is Jeff.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
is that
You know
the
what I
male
mean?
Karen, Jeff?
What's up? It's Jeff. I'm just, oh man. And his ex-wife signed so many NDAs, but I'm girl, give me those deets.
So we're
Oh,
almost
he probably likes to get tied up so much.
So much.
Oh, yeah.
Well-
he probably
Such a
likes to
turd.
put a pacifier in his mouth or something.
he
He's such a
might,
bad
but he
lad.
also I'm not any defender of Jeff Bezos, but someone did try to blackmail him for his nudes, and he just released them himself. He was I don't care. I'm the richest man on earth.
Yeah.
And who would want to see those, by the way?
Yeah,
But-
also, that's the other thing. I'd be I don't care how much you need money. We will start a GoFundMe, okay?
Also, everyone
Nobody
has-
wants to see those nudes.
Everyone has nudes now. It's not even it's not even that embarrassing
Yeah.
anymore. Shocking.
Do you guys remember there was you probably didn't catch this story because I go into the deep trenches of random news. But a while ago, maybe about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, there was a woman. She was a Democratic senator, and her ex-husband basically sank her career because he released a naked picture of her smoking a bong, and she actually, to her credit, was you know what? I'm just going to step down. There's too much chaos going on, and I don't want a big circus the party is more like the platform is more important than this. But like, how gross is that? That it's not 100% confirmed, but it's probably her ex-husband.
Right, but
who-
it's the same thing of like that sinks a woman's career.
That's what I'm saying. How
and
stupid
then,
is that?
But then it's also like the guy who is our president right now, we know is like very deeply tied to Epstein, and then also has like just said everything awful that he said. Also sexualizes his daughter, which like I feel like we all can agree no matter what.
For
like,
sure.
The amount of things that you can like avoid as a Trump like supporter, like just remember he says super creepy sexual things about his daughter, and that's like really freaking weird. And like I don't know, I'm just saying that it's like again that double standard, which like to me also at this point it's like anybody, especially conservatives at this point that are saying anything about like sexual like misconduct, etc. I'm like, I will not hear that conversation from you when you continue to support Trump.
I just want to.
And I'm not saying that Trump is better than Biden. We know Biden's a total creep too. But I'm just saying where it's like when people are holding on to that as like a sliver of like that they're a good person and that they, they're closer to God because of their like blah blah. Nope, beat it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it.
I just
I'm not
wanna-
buying
The
it.
election is like, it's like, oh, which color Play-Doh do you want to play with?
100%.
I want to clarify. Like, I don't think she should have stepped down. If I heard that my senator, she like had a naked photo smoking a bong, I would think she was cool. I just think it's dumb that there was like pressure on her to step down because it wasn't even when she was in office either.
Who was it was a Detroit, I think, like mayor or something that got like there was pictures of him with a prostitute smoking crack.
Oh,
that was
Wiener?
no.
Chris
You're
Christie,
are you thinking of Marion Barry from DC?
Are there so many that we can't find
Rob-
the one?
well,
That's the problem.
There's Rob Ford from Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
Stateside. I think one was like Detroit, and one of them also might have been.
There probably was
DC.
something in Detroit, but there was a famous case before any of our time, or maybe we were like really little. But Marion Barry was the mayor of DC, and he got set up in a police sting, and the police basically like caught him on surveillance smoking crack with a prostitute. But hold on. But he went to prison, served his time, came back, got reelected. So
That's hilarious.
hey, man.
I mean, that shows how many people are unwilling.
Emily's face right now.
That's
is so
how many
funny.
people are unwilling to go into politics.
I mean, who would want that life? You have to be a sociopath.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Where it's also like so many people are like, "Yeah, no thanks."
He
dog.
left. He left. He got out of jail, and they were like, "Oh, we never replaced you. Your
Don't worry, your
office
job's
is
here when you
literally
get
still
back."
there."
Dude.
He just walks in and it's
It's-
like blowing the dust off of like old VHS.
That's
tapes.
how corrupt our government is. Like, it's the same way that like when those mafia guys go to prison and they still run the mafia from their cell.
Right.
It's like, Mr. Mayor, and he's like on the phone. He's like, only got 10 minutes left.
Well, and I think that's it too, which is it's just which I do. I will actually use the word preach. I feel like I preach about this, which is simply awareness. Of it's not that we're going to fix everything.
In another
and it's
life,
not,
you would have been a great preacher.
and it's not. Well, it's still not too not too late.
Yeah.
But it's like just becoming aware.
Yeah.
Become aware that it is not radical to say you live in a world that has been set up by these political powers over and over and over and over and over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And that's the other thing when people are like, gosh, I can't believe we're here. I'm like, really? Have you never watched a documentary or
I think people.
don't know anything about history or
Yeah,
never heard
they're
of
like,
Reagan?
when people
or,
are like, "I just wish it could go back to the way it was," and I'm like, "Oh, before you knew about it,
yeah.
before
like-
you didn't know,
yeah.
like it's all still happening."
Like that's when people are like, oh, I can't wait for it to go back to normal.
I've
I'm
said
like,
this-
what does that even mean?
Over and over, America is too big. We're not meant to have a country as big as ours. Listen, I love the U.S. I'm blessed to live here. I've said it before, but there's no way that this many people can live under one guy in charge.
Right.
Unless it's like a full authoritarian dictatorship. It's the only way. You can't have this much freedom. I mean, look at the fucking mask issue. Like the whole concept that people feel that it's an infringement on their rights to wear a mask. And they don't actually think that. It's because their guy said so. That's the only reason why. They don't actually have a real logical thought
it's an
in their head.
infringement on their rights, but they also still think that they should have the rights to my body. So that's again the problem to me, where the hypocrisy comes in, where I'm like, that's fine. So if you feel that everybody's rights should be their rights, then everybody's rights should be their rights.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like I have to start talking to people sometimes in the idea of everyone, of the American people, in the same way that I talk to my kids when I need to get them to listen when I'm teaching school children, which is like, okay, so when somebody says stop, what do we do? Like, it's crazy to me that we've been able to figure out how to politicize this. And also to your point of like how big the nation position is. If I see one more person posting, like a very liberal leaning friend, and I'm very liberal, but seeing somebody post something of like the amount of cases that are in Australia versus, do you know how big Australia is in comparison to America? Shut up. Shut up. Stop saying that, because then anybody who doesn't agree with you is just going to come at you and be like, oh, liberals don't know anything. Stop giving somebody who has the opportunity to learn a reason to come at you and combat what it is that you're saying.
Yeah, but hold
Stop
on.
doing that.
To clarify, most people don't know anything.
I know, but I'm just saying that it's like every time I see those where they're like, well, Italy did it right. And I'm like, Italy is the size of like Florida and Georgia.
That's just
Do you understand?
That's the one-upper. It's the same thing. When you talk about your new phone and somebody else has an even better phone, it's the same thing. It's just now they're like aware, so they can like, mask it behind that. It's the same energy.
It's just like, listen, whether COVID, and I know some, like I've got shout out to my loves, Caitlin and Pierce, that live in Dothan, Alabama. Totally different world than here, right? Totally different world. And I was asking her, I was like, can you share with me a little bit about what it's been like there? And she's like, yeah, they just don't really care. And she was like, and not being flippant and saying that, but as simple as like, to them, it's like a very conservative area. So to them, this is a political thing by the left, and, and all these things. So they've just decided it's one way. And again, it's like, can I really fault them where it's like, we have this media that's only like you're either with us or you're not. And so if you're with us, this is what we believe. And it's as simple as like, it just doesn't make sense to me why, like, clearly, the way that I feel about coronavirus, which is simple of like, this is something that we've never seen before. Scientists have known that there is something like this that's coming, and we weren't prepared. It's that simple. We weren't prepared for something that could have been a much smaller stain, if you will, but we had a leader or a person in a position of leadership who was not a leader. Yeah. So when that's where we start and they're calling it the China virus or whatever it was that he was saying that was like not at all helpful, then everybody else goes into every man for himself.
I know. It's
so this is also something that could be both not as big of a threat and also equally very much a threat. The problem is we didn't have anybody using the language to explain, here are our options. Here's what's going on. So when we have something that could have been very easily adapted by the American people, and everybody still could have chosen whether they wanted to wear a mask or otherwise, but we would actually be all having the same conversation. When we had somebody who wasn't actually a leader, it now has divided everybody, that everybody's having different microcosms of conversations, when really we could have had the opportunity to just start with one conversation based off of like, hey, we're dealing with something that we haven't dealt with before. Here's what we know about it. So here's what we're going to do.
I mean, the problem with our leadership is like, we're really at the point where Donald Trump is basically like a dog that won't stop shitting on the carpet. No matter what you do, he just will always shit on the carpet.
Right.
But the problem for a lot of folks is that Joe Biden is obviously like a human sock puppet, and you don't really know who actually is pulling the levers. And so you can be like, this dog bites people and shits on the carpet. It's like, I know, but like that scares me more. I'm not saying that's the right answer. I'm just saying like I understand the mindset, which just highlights the same, like you said, dude, you know me, I'm going full libertarian at this point. Like, I'm like,
but it's also where even if like, let's say that, every liberal's favorite Bernie would have been, we still would be in the same position. We've gotten so far one way that I believe that like anybody who would have been relatively like moderate and well-spoken wouldn't have really had a shot in the game anyway. And I feel like the Democrats were banking on Biden the whole time anyway.
Because the leadership just...
Or the DNC. I shouldn't speak specifically about Democrats because that's...
I'm going to clarify something too, is that... And I
then
think
we should probably wrap it up, right?
We're at an hour and a half.
We got to go.
Oh my God.
Do you have to refill the meter?
Parking's up at 7:05.
Okay, let's end it on there because I don't want anybody getting tickets. So... Well, seriously,
I know. Yeah.
There's so much to say. Emily,
oh, man.
I hope you...
What am I going to pay the government with the government money that they gave me that I'm actually paying for anyway?
Emily, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I really did.
This was lovely.
Incredible.
We'll have you back for sure.
Yeah, if you want to come back, because I feel like we didn't really let you...
We should probably have a part 2 next week.
We have another guest next week, but...
We could do roundtable.
We could... No, I want to have Lizzie let her have her own episode with
Okay.
us. That's the person how we met. Was we did a show at her house, and
You're
she
kidding.
swear
Yep.
to God.
Oh, that's so fun.
I know. So we're gonna talk about that. But Emily, one more time, just plug everything in your life and
Where can we find you?
Yeah, just follow me on at Emily Browntown, really, for Instagram. I got, that website dropping. I do script consulting. And if you want to check out at Making Love and Growing Up on Spotify and Apple playlists, that would also be a fun time where you'll probably learn way too much about me.
dude, it's great.
And all that daddy stuff we talked about earlier.
Oh yeah.
Heyo.
So guys, I'm Alex Getlin.
I'm Rachel LaForce.
Thank you again so much,
Guys,
for
shout out again
Oh.
to Tony. Thank you so
Hey,
much,
thank
Tony,
you.
for being here and being producing this session for us.
Thanks for having me.
Tony Klein.
We love you guys so much. If things we said today triggered you, good. If things we said today resonated with you, good. These are just conversations. We don't know everything. So tune in next week.
Listen, sometimes it's funny, but a lot of times, and I don't mind it. It gets into serious.
Again, I feel like we're funny enough. We've
We
earned
are.
the title. So if you were just wanting like hoopty
Well,
hoop jokes, I don't know. Watch
I'm gonna
Eric
give-
Andre's special on Netflix.
I'm gonna give the award of funniest comment was to Emily for her Play-Doh comment. That was very funny.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So again, guys, we're here every Monday live, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. We'll see you next week.
Love
All right,
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hey.
I'm going to put my mask